And a one-hand effort by Harris. And Harris stabs it.
What is up, everybody? College football show breaking down the CFB slate for week 13, which it's going to be a fun week. We got the big game, Indiana and Ohio State. That's going to be a super fun game that I know I'm excited about. I'm sure Bryce and his wife are excited about as well. Bruce, I'll head it over to you first. It's that time of the year. You got the hat on. Yay, sports. All the sports are going on. It's definitely crazy. And I was telling Bryce on the cash show before we started that show, like it's going to be a nice like 10 to 12 week stretch of just like football. So I'm really excited for it. How are you doing, Bruce?
Yeah, doing great. Yeah, solid games this weekend for sure. And man, it started last night. We got Georgia Tech, and they won at the wire, so it was it's a good one for sure. And then we have a couple games tonight too. It's such a great stretch, especially for sports. I posted in the Discord yesterday. I didn't even realize how many different sports were going on. I started typing them out. I'm like, man, it's a lot going on. I was kind of wondering why we had only a 2K to first showdown, but it all made sense once I typed it out. But yeah, really looking forward to it. I mean, starting off with Ole Miss and Florida, and then ending with Pitt and Louisville. It's just fantastic weekend. Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of fun. And Bryce, we'll go on over to you. I'm sure you're pumped for the Indiana-Ohio State game a little bit. I know you're in a bachelor party in Arizona, I think. So how are things going over there?
I'm all good, man. Having a beer to start the day. Little natty light. All my friends are getting back from the airport soon. And I had a mishap with my bags today. They sent my bag. Like I had to like gate check it, and then they ended up sending it to like Seattle. So they're sending it back from Seattle. Thankfully, like one of my buddies is coming in like late tonight, and he'll be able to scoop it from the airport. So like I was at the airport dealing with that bullshit, but yeah, it's what it is. Got everything I need in my backpack to like work and do the show. Not gonna be playing the slate tonight as good as it is, just because we have stuff going on. But we're hanging out at DK Sportsbook tomorrow to watch some college football. I think from like 11 to 4, they hooked it up for me. So that'll be a super fun place to sweat the games.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. I figured you'd get a good hookup there. Yeah, I haven't looked at the Knights game. We'll have Bruce talk about it later on. He'll break it all down for us. I'm sure I'll get in on the night slate action. I was busy yesterday, so I missed out on the night slate stuff yesterday for college. But that's okay. There was so much.
You didn't miss too much.
I didn't. That's good to hear. It was a very chaotic day, but I got everything I could done, and I was like, college just can't muster that one today. But let's go in and talk about this college slate though, which we're getting that time of year. The playoff stuff is getting really fun to talk about. I was DMing Bruce. I'm like, hey, who do we think is like a good long shot, for the college football stuff? Like, I'm trying to find guys that I think Ole Miss is super interesting. I think they're a team that I don't know where they're going to fall bracket wise, right? This is the first time we have this bracket, so it's a little bit different, but. So Ole Miss team, they're coming on strong, and a game against Florida on the road. I mean, they can put up a lot of points here. And to be fair, Bruce, Florida looks better as well. Like, if this was in like October, we would be like, okay, Ole Miss will put up points, but like, do they win 35-3? I mean, this team's a disaster. Like, listen, they're coming along a little bit better. DJ Lagway is a cheap quarterback. I beat the drum every week. Cheap quarterbacks. Not a bad spot for DJ Lagway and like a little bit of like a game stack if you want to. You also have Bentley, who has a pretty good projection for being 4.2K. I know we like to talk about here at RPS. Hey, cheap running back TJ, completely different type of build. And for 4.2K and a 14.2 projection, I mean, that's pretty solid. I don't think he is a bad play here in tournaments. Trey Harris at 9.3. Obviously, is a great projection, good option. We know Jordan Watkins has broken slates. Caden Lee, he was a favorite when he was dirt cheap. Clearly a game that I think we have to at least have some interest in, Bruce. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. This game's kind of sneaky. It's the first game of the on the slate, and you mentioned Ole Miss to me earlier in the week, and I like them a lot. I like their chances here. Jackson Dart's just too good. They're getting Trey Harris back, so if he's good to go, it's going to be a fun game. He loves throwing the football to him. He is 9,300, but no one's going to play him most likely. He's going to be really low owned at that price, so I don't mind him at all. You don't have to play dart with him. That's a lot of money allocated to QB wide receiver, but they can score 40 apiece, so that would be a good start to your lineups for sure if they hit. Bagway I thought looked good last week. He's only 5K, which is nuts. At home too, he can run a little bit. He has had that hamstring issue, but looked okay last week. And then, like you mentioned, Ulysses Bentley, 4,200 started their last game. He got the majority of the snaps. Kind of worry about Amos and Thomas and Matt Jones all being healthy, and Logan Diggs starting to get a little healthy too. So maybe it's a tournament play only play for me, but those cheap running backs are always good to see. Not too much interest in the Florida running game just because Ole Miss has been really good at stopping the run, only allowing 18 points per game to running backs. But it is a home game, so you just never know there. Florida receivers, Badger went off last week. DK is still cheap at 4,400. Watkins can go off. Caden Lee, Juice Wells as well. And then there's the two cheap tight ends for Ole Miss, right? And Priest Warren are both 4K still. They're studs, sure.
All right, Bryce, I'll go over to you. This is a 55.5 total. Definitely not a bad game DFS-wise. There's some values. There's some spends. How are you handling this game?
So on the Mississippi State side of the ball, or Mississippi, sorry, they're just so expensive. And I think kind of everyone's overpriced with Trey Harris back. Obviously, it helps Dart, and Harris is a good play in his own right. But kind of tournaments only for me for them. I do like Trey Harris in tournaments a lot. They're just running back spends I prefer on the slate, and it's not like you can get everyone. The value's on Florida here. If you want to play anyone in cash, I think Lagway is playable at 5K. There are some quarterbacks I like more, but he's a pretty solid punt for 5K. And then I think the other guy that stands out here to me is I don't know if you need him, but DK, or I can never say his name right, but
that's right.
He's super cheap again. So actually, like he's up to 4.4. I think it's kind of like the only cash play for me here is Lagway, and I don't mind like a game stack of like Lagway, Harris, and then some of these Florida receivers. I don't know if you need Dart, but I don't love expensive quarterbacks this week in general. So I think he's probably my favorite quarterback spend, to be honest.
Yeah, he definitely seems like a good spend. And honestly, going to the point that we were talking about a little bit earlier, Harris and Dart together are really expensive. So if I do that, I might even just play Lagway with them to hope I get the full on ceiling.
I would. If you're playing them together, I think you should have Lagway.
Yeah, and at that point, maybe you go Bentley and you go a Florida receiver too. I don't know if you have to go that far, but maybe you do. I think it's just something to kind of consider. And again, it's a big slate though. We got other good games, so I don't want to over exaggerate this one. There's definitely some really good games on this slate that we are going to get to. Let's get to a game that I don't see myself loving DFS wise, and I think it's mainly because if you look at the slate, there's some really good games that we are going to get to. It's a 52.5 total. I just think this could be more of a grinded out game. Yes, I think a Jeremiah Smith could crush, right? Ohio State and Indiana. It's going to be the marquee game that everyone's been waiting on, right? It's the perfect storm. A team that's undefeated, it's part of a real conference, and they finally get their first test. It's with this coach that's an absolute baller and just says Google me. It's the perfect storm for an amazing football game. DFS wise, I think I'm okay with when I run all my stuff, I'm going to look at my teams. I'm going to be if I have 50% Smith or Buka, that's just too much. I have like 10 or 5%, fine, great. I'm okay with it. But for me, Bruce, I don't need to load the boat on this game. I think in the past, this is the kind of game Big T would be like, hey, it could shoot out and be a really good game. Like Georgia-Bama is kind of one of those games from earlier in the year that absolutely nuked, and it wasn't even on the optimal that much because people didn't even play it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's this game, and I think this slate, it just doesn't set up correct for it. What's kind of your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree with you. Just mostly because these teams don't allow a lot of explosive plays. I do, I kind of thought the same thing when they played Oregon, and that was kind of a shootout, 63 points. And the receivers kind of went off. Dylan Gabriel went off as well, and had a good completion percentage as well. But yeah, I think this game should be a little bit slower, and maybe have more 12-play drives, that kind of thing when they do score. The way that Indiana wins, I think, is kind of beating Ohio State over the top a little bit, maybe with a guy like Omar Cooper or Keyshawn Williams, who are both cheap. Surratt's also cheap. I think I think at least Indiana can hang here. I don't want to spend up for these guys on Ohio State. They're too expensive, and I do kind of respect this Indiana defense a little bit. But I don't mind the cheap Indiana receivers here, especially Williams. I like him a lot. I think he's looked good the last few weeks. 19% target share last 3 weeks, and dude was good at Wake Forest. So I think he's interesting. But yeah, mostly staying away outside of like Smith in tournaments, Egbuka in tournaments. I just have too much respect for this Indiana defense, who I think is really solid.
For sure. We got Mr. Workbench Playmaker 23 saying free Big T. Talk to the schedule makers. It's not us, okay? None of us have this handled, so it is what it is. Bruce rocking the old Auburn shirt. By the way, that's a good one right there. It's a good shirt. So
they play A&M this weekend, so we're big Auburn fans.
Okay, big Auburn fans here, rooting for them to beat A&M. Which that's VIP's team, right? I don't know if he's going to be so happy about that, or Vip's team. But.
It's okay. He can take it.
Yeah. All right. Bryce, obviously you want to see Indiana win this weekend. I know that's not DFS-wise what matters, but talk about this game and your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see IU win this game. Issue here is with Indiana every week, you can't play the running backs. I'm not going to be playing Rourke here against this Ohio State defense. Completely agree with Bruce. I think Surratt is like in the cash discussion. Not my favorite play, but I think these cheap IU receivers are good in tournaments. And like, if you want like a mini sack here, like I would just play like Smith or Egbuka. I prefer Smith, and then like probably one of the cheaper IU guys like Cooper that can hit him over the top. Outside of this game, not a ton for me. Go Hoosiers.
Yeah. Also, want to call out Ohio State. They are missing like their starting center, right? Like that's a big deal. Like I just think this game can get a little muddier because of that, right? It could just be a little ugly, grinded out game. But yeah, that's it for that game. Let's get to some of these other ones. UNC BC, not my favorite game. We're getting to some, but it's a 55 total. We love attacking UNC's defense. I will call that out. Obviously, it's a spot. We like to attack them. Hampton, he is 9.6. Criswell, 7K. Not bad options. We got Grayson James looking like he's going to be in there at 6'4" as a cheaper quarterback. I guess he's not the worst play. You got Louis Bond, 4.9, and he's kind of like a condom play. Bruce, we typically love to attack UNC. Again, there's a couple of good games we're about to get to, and I don't know if I want to use like all my exposures to this game. Typically, I would love to target a UNC game, but I'm not dying to get to this one. I think there's some okay plays. What about you?
Yeah, it's tough. Outside of a guy like Hampton, who's going to be a workhorse guy, but he's expensive. Probably more of like a pivot off of like Taj Brooks or Harvey. It's tough for me to play anybody in this game. It's kind of a slower pace. Both defenses. UNC's defense hasn't been great all year, but they've been solid lately, in my opinion. I think Robichaux is probably a good tournament play if you want it. But again, they're going to rotate guys there. So that's tough. Copenhagen's a good salary option, salary saver option there at 3,500. He's still getting the targets, playing every snap. And then Lewis Bond as well, under 5K. But yeah, it's mostly a pass game for me. I don't have a ton of interest outside of outside of Hampton.
All right. Bryce, typically you want to target UNC. Like I said before, it's a 55 total, so it's not nothing. But on this slate, are you interested in BC or UNC?
Only BC guy I'm looking at here is Robichaux. I mean, you love to attack Carolina, and I think that's the best way to do it on the ground here for them. UNC plays for me. I mean, Hampton's an absolute monster. If you can find the money, I think you should get to him. But 9-6 is obviously not an easy guy to get to. You really have to spend down elsewhere, and I don't absolutely love the value this week. Copenhagen's a good cheap receiver. Only 3.5 for him, so don't mind that. Other than that, I think those are pretty much my plays in the game. Don't want anything to do with the quarterbacks. And yeah, Bond. I mean, Bond is playable. He'll be in my tournament pool, but I'm not going to get there in cash.
All right, let's get to the game. It's Miami and Wake Forest. Clearly one that has to be discussed. I honestly wish this game wasn't on the slate. It's a 66.5 total. And Miami's frustrating for sure. Their prices are up there, but Cam Ward 10.5. If you have the value, it's definitely playable. Xavier Restrepo 8K. He's got a decent projection here. Claiborne 7.6 in a trailing strip. I know Bruce is normally a big Claiborne guy. Then we got these running backs. Damian Martinez, he is priced up at 6.1K. Horton 6.2, who has really emerged this year as kind of the wide receiver 2, more so over George, it seems like. George is 5.4. They got Fletcher at 4.9 as a cheap option. Bruce, I look at this game and I see the total, and I'm like, okay, this is clearly a game to get to. I just don't know if I'm actually going to get to it as much as you might think. Am I crazy to think that with it being a 66.5 total?
I really love it. I just think Miami rolls here. They've been scored a ton at home. If you look at their home games, they've scored 53 against Duke 2 weeks ago, 36 against Florida State, which is like an easy thing to do nowadays, 38 against Virginia Tech, 62 against Ball State, and 56 in their first game of the year. So they put up some points at home. They're a really good home team, and Wake Forest is not good defensively. So I do have a ton of interest in Cam Ward. I know he's expensive, but he's put up some big scores this year. What you don't need to happen is Miami to be able to run the football here, and they should be able to. It's an easy matchup all across the board for them. So it's a little scary whenever you commit that much money to a quarterback when they are able to run the football as well and score points that way. So, but I do love Cam Ward here. I think Restrepo is probably my favorite spend-up receiver this week, just because Wake Forest has been terrible against the slot. They've allowed a ton of points this year against the slot position. So I think he smashes this week. I'll have him in most of my tournament lineups. I just think he puts up a big score. You don't even have to play him with Ward. I think he puts up a huge score here. And I don't really want much of the Wake receiver situation. They kind of rotate a lot, but I don't mind Donovan Green at that price. He's been solid this year. If you're gonna play a little bit of a leverage play, I don't mind Martinez or Fletcher. Both are relatively cheap, under 6,100. Fletcher especially is cheap. And, both have been really good this year. They should be able to run the football. So Wake Forest is giving up 26 points per game to running backs. If you need a value guy, Sam Brown Jr. is 3,700. And he's getting a lot of snaps too, the transfer from Houston. So I think he's a good value option for Miami.
Yeah, the Sam Brown Jr. value is a good call out. Definitely someone that could, you look at the end of the slate and you're like, well, you might need that guy. even like some of these cheap Wake Forest receivers, like a Horatio Fields, I know he's had the ability to have ceiling games. It could be a 0-2, keep in mind. So just you got to remember that when you're doing the game stacks and more of an MME kind of play. Bryce, I'll head on over to you. I'm assuming you'll have some interest in this game for cash game stuff. But again, there's some really good games we're going to get to. And I'm torn on what to do with this one. I think it's clearly a game you can't ignore in tournaments. But what's your thoughts?
I mean, I love Cam Ward pairings in tournaments. I don't think you need a Wake run back. As Bruce said, the receivers are super hard to pin down, and I want nothing to do with their run game. Miami running back split. They lost last week. You saw the carries go more towards Martinez than Fletcher, but with the loss, that could swing back in Fletcher's pendulum, and I think he's really solid, like cheap running back at 4.9. Miami receivers are pretty much nuts here. After Restrepo, it's a little hard to pick Horton or George. I would lean Horton, but I think George is a good play as well. Both those guys are cash playable. I personally don't think I'm going to be able to get to Restrepo at 8K, but I absolutely love him in tournaments with Bruce here.
All right, let's head on over to the next set of games. Last game in the 12 o'clock window, and then we have every game in the 3:30 window except Pitt and Louisville. So that's kind of nice. SMU and UVA. Somewhere Steve Boynton is telling us to bet the Kevin Jennings ladders. 7.9K, definitely a solid play. Rashad Smith, 8.8. I think there's other running backs I'd prefer, but he's not a bad play for sure. There's a lot of obviously running backs we could get to here on this slate. Again, there's some that we are going to come to shortly. Bruce, this game's okay. Again, I think there's games we're getting to that we're going to really like. I think you can make a case for some of these SMU plays. Not as excited about UVA ones. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of an underrated game. I think both teams are pretty fast. I know SMU always goes with pace, and they have a good quarterback as well. And both teams are giving up a ton of explosive plays. So that's extremely interesting to me. SMU, they love to run the football when they can. UVA has been down most of their games, so they've been throwing a lot more than they'd probably like. I'm not sure if Calandria is going to go in this one for UVA or if it's going to be Musket. I know Calandria got banged up last week against Notre Dame, so that's something to watch. Thought Musket kind of looks good. If we get him for 6,200, I don't mind that at all, because he's just too cheap, and they're probably going to be trailing. He can run a little bit. I think he runs better than Calandria does. But yeah, Kevin Jennings, great play. I have him projected well. I think he's going to be under-owned because there's other quarterbacks in that range. So probably more of a tournament play, but I think he's solid. Rashard Smith, like you mentioned, expensive, but should see some ownership. I think it's a good spot for him. As UVA has given up 24 points per game to running backs, played 75% of snaps last week too. So just a good spot for him. And then the receivers, SMU receivers have been a lot more concentrated than they have when it comes to snap counts. Last week, Jordan Hudson got 67% of the snaps and 8 targets. Keyshawn Smith, 81% of snaps and 8 targets. Smith and Dixon have been getting like tons of snaps, and that never happened in years past, which, you love to see that. Roderick Daniels as well. All these SMU guys are cheap, under 5K. And then, if you want to run it back, you have Tyler Neville for 3,500. The tight end is cheap. I think he's really good. And then Malachi Fields, of course, is expensive and tough to play, but is a decent run back.
All right, Bryce, break this game down again. We're going to get to the good ones in a second. I know I keep teasing it. I'm like over and over. But this game's not a bad one. What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more of a tournament game. I don't really see many cash plays here. I like Jennings in tournaments. I don't think Calandera is a bad run back at all at 6'2". Rashad Smith, obviously, good play at 8'8". I would just probably – we'll get to Brooks, but I would rather play Brooks over him, pretty much every day of the week. And then I would also prefer Hampton over Smith, but obviously there's a pricing difference there. I I don't mind this cheap receiver from SMU, Daniels. I think he's a decent play here. Only 4.4, and I think he's a really good pairing with Jennings in tournaments.
All right.
And then Colin Terry, you can run naked. I'm not playing any of these UVA receivers at these prices.
Yeah, I'm with you. I saw the Fields price and I was like, no, just like instantly, no, it was just ugly. So I'm out on that. All right, Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. I love to target Texas Tech games. They're always fun ones. I feel like DFS wise, definitely going to be a game that I look to get to here. Again, start of the 3:30 window, should call that out as well. I do think we're going to want to get to this game. Oklahoma State, I know they can be frustrating at times, but it's clearly a game we're going to have to like. Bowman, 7.3. Morton, 6.5. Pretty friendly quarterback pricing. Yes, they're not full-on punts, but pretty friendly pricing for a game that's as good as this one. Again, it's a 66 total. Way more friendly than the other 66 total that we talked about. Taj Brooks, 8.9K. Ollie Gordon, who's been frustrating throughout the year, 8.7. Don't need the running backs, but they're definitely not the worst plays. The receivers, Josh Kelly finally priced up to 7K. Brennan Presley, 7.2. Both really good options. Stribling, 6.6. Douglas, 5K. Still feels too cheap. Eakin, 4.4. I know Eakin was better with the other quarterback, not as good with Morton, but still not a bad play. And then Owens, 5K. I'm sure there's other guys we could talk about. I know Bruce has talked about Ayo, whatever his name is, Shatamide King. I don't know if he's still getting the work he was, but friendly prices for a 66 for a 66 total, Bruce. I think it's a great way to kick off the 30-30 slate. I'm obviously going to want to consider exposure to this game. How are we going to go about it?
Yeah, it's the Alan Bowman revenge game. I mean, he
go.
started off at Texas Tech, made his way to Michigan, and then to Oklahoma State. So
was that in 2015, Bruce, when he started there?
Yeah, it seems like 2002 or something like that.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Long time ago. But yeah, he's cheap, and not a lot of people will play him at that price. He probably should be in the 6K range, to be honest, but he's played. But this is a good matchup, and it's at home, senior day, so he should get full run. I doubt they pull him out. I'm pretty sorry, but I think Baron Morton's probably one of the better quarterback plays on the slate. 6,500 for him is crazy in this matchup. Oklahoma State's given up 28 points per game to quarterbacks this year. Their secondary is a mess. So I think he smashes. If you play him, you're going to play wide receiver with him, either Kelly or Douglas or Eakin, one of those guys. Douglas and Eakin are both cheap too, so it's pretty easy to fit them in. Running back, man, maybe it's Ollie Gordon day. This is probably his last game at home. Probably will declare for the draft. Don't see him coming back unless he gets a bigger payday next year than what he'll get in the draft, which is possible, I guess. But I think Taj Brooks is probably the best running back play on the slate, maybe up there with the UCF running back as well. So I think I'll have a ton of him. But the Tech receivers are great plays. Brennan Presley, I love him in tournaments. It's senior day for him as well. And then Stribling has smashed. I think he's a great play as well. Not a ton of value in this game for sure, but love the spend up guys.
All right, Bryce, definitely a game that we are going to want to get to DFS wise. Sure, it could be a little bit of roulette. Like you might play Presley and you're like, well, I should have played Kelly. Like I should have played this guy. But if you're an MME guy, you have to have some interest in this game. Obviously in cash games, I'm curious to hear like with just playing one lineup at times, like how are you going to handle allocating to this game? Because it's clearly one of those you could see yourself kicking yourself if you don't play this guy or that guy, because it's a great game and it's definitely one of those tough ones to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine overstacking this game in general. Morton and Brooks are kind of cheap enough to get there. It's not like Brooks catches tons of passes, but like Morton's so cheap that like I think you can play them together. And one of the receivers, Kelly's obviously like the alpha in this offense, but I like Douglas as well. He's really been coming on, and he's capable of having a huge game. So I'm totally fine with Douglas here. I would mainly stick to those 4 guys from Texas Tech, and then on Oklahoma State, like I think Gordon's the best run back here by far. Like you can pivot off of like another expensive guy and get him in to kind of run it back. I don't really love any of their receivers.
Yeah, it's definitely, again, like a tough game to like guess it all. But I mean, I struggle to see guys not being on the winner. The only reason why I could see guys not being on the winner is it's just a loaded slate. It's a really good one. And this next game is part of the reason why. Kansas and Colorado, and it's definitely a high total. I want to pull it up here real quick. It is 59.5. And I mean, I've been pretty high on Kansas, I feel like, over the past couple of weeks, and that's definitely been beneficial to me. I'll admit, Bruce, I'm kind of scared of the Colorado defense. Like, I don't think this defense is a joke. And I don't think Jalen Daniels is just like this absolute stud, but it's 6'9". He's not a bad play for sure in tournaments. Devin Neal, 7'5", definitely a good price tag. Auguste, 4'1", he's going to be someone on my radar. Travis Hunter, at least he's not 10K, he's 9K. Don't think he's a bad play. You don't feel priced out of him like you have on some shorter slates. Then you got Wester, whose price just keeps skyrocketing. You keep over-projecting him. He keeps crushing. Luke Grimm, 6K. Will Shepard, 5'6". He's finally starting to find his role. Skinner, I think, has a lot of upside for 4'9". There's good plays left and right here, Bruce. We're going to like this game, but I don't know. Are you a little worried about the Kansas side, kind of like myself?
Yeah, a little bit. Colorado's defense went into Lubbock and shut Texas Tech's offense down. It was, really good offense, maybe even better than this Kansas offense. So, a little worried. They've been getting to the quarterback. I know I think they lead the Big 12 in sacks or something similar. So yeah, they've absolutely been playing really well. So it's tough. But I think Jalen Daniels is a solid play. He's been running the football really well. I looked back at Colorado's schedule this year, and they've not really faced like the best running quarterbacks. I mean, they faced Cincinnati and Sorsby, but Sorsby isn't on the same level that Jalen Daniels is when he runs. So I think Jalen Daniels gives them a different look than they've seen this year for sure. They did play KJ Jefferson and ran for 76 yards. So, that's the one guy that's kind of comparable. But I think Jalen Daniels is a lot better runner than he is. So I definitely think it's interesting, an interesting play. And he can pass, this Colorado pass defense is kind of suspect. They do have Shiloh Sanders back in there, but I think they struggled just a little bit outside of him. Devin Neal, 7,500. I think you have to at least consider him here, at least in tournaments. He should be in the 8Ks at this point just because he's getting all the work. 80% snaps last week. Augusta at 4,100 have to consider as well just because of the price. And guys getting half of the snaps at least. And it's at home. Kansas rush defense isn't great. So kind of a cheaper play there. Wester, I think, is the best receiving play here at 6,700. Kansas has had issues against the slot as well this year. Got 11 targets last week, and just looks the best. I think him and Hunter are just a great pairing. Shepard, these Kansas outside corners are really good. They shut down the Iowa State receiving game last week, and I think the way to beat them is in the slot and over the middle. I think Wester can do that for sure. Draylon Miller also at 4K, smashed last week, and I think he's a good play here. Kansas receivers are always rough, but their third receiver, Lawrence Arnold, I believe, is out here. So it should be just Grimm and Skinner. Those guys are great in tournaments, especially in game stacks. Grimm is I think he's a slate breaker if he has a big game. It's just always hard to nail that down when it's going to be. So yeah, it's a really good game, really good game stack for sure.
Yeah, really good game stack. And at that point with the Kansas receivers, that's a good point because it's going to be a really condensed target share, kind of like our friendly Iowa State team, although they were not so friendly last week. I don't know who they were throwing to. They were throwing to just absolute losers from
tight ends over the middle. That's how you beat Kansas is over the middle. I think that Burkle guy, the big tight end for Iowa State, had 10 targets or something last week. And,
Yeah, that's how you beat what? You said Kansas over the middle or Kansas State?
Kansas, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
No, it wasn't the Kansas game. It was someone else last week. Who did they play last week, Iowa State?
I thought they played Kansas, didn't they? Wasn't that last week?
I thought that was 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I'm looking now because now I need to know. It's
that was 2 weeks ago. You're right. Yep.
Yeah, it was. I
Yeah,
know.
and it was Jalen Noel that beat him over the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. It was last week. It was Cincinnati. It was
That's
like,
right.
And now that I'm on the game, I'm pulling it up because I want to tilt. Iowa State is the team that I get stuck watching every week, and I enjoy watching. Oh, it was Burkle. Burkle had 73 receiving yards, and Stevo Klotz, like just
tight
absolute.
end.
Yeah. Oh, had 32 receiving yards. It was the most random guy. So that was frustrating, but that's enough tilt for last week. Bryce, talk about Kansas and Colorado. It's definitely a good DFS game. Curious to see where you're getting to it with it being such a good total.
So I really like Colorado as a bet at 2.5. So I'm likely on the special party, we're doing one big group bet, and that's I think the one I'm going to pitch. That being said, I do like Jalen Daniels here. I think he's too cheap, and he's running a lot more. I do expect there to be points. My issue with Colorado and DFS, I'd almost rather bet them than play them in DFS. These guys are just so expensive that it really kind of torpedoes your lineup. I think if you're going to play a stack, it would be Sanders, and I agree with Wester. 6-7, 5-6 for Shepard is simply too much for me. Hunter at 9K, I just think it's kind of too hard to get to, and you're doing too much. I think his role offensively might fall off a little bit, but he wants the Heisman. So, yeah. This is a good question. Would you guys rather have him or Trey Harris this week in DFS?
Him or who are Hunter? Or
him, Trey Harris, Restrepo.
Him. So Hunter, Harris, or Restrepo. I would rank it Hunter, Restrepo, Harris. I mean, it's hard. It's definitely not easy. Bruce, do you feel the same?
I'd go Restrepo first, just because of the matchup. Yeah,
and you're saving money with Restrepo. I agree with that.
What's your order, Bryce? Same as Bruce's?
I would be Restrepo, Hunter, then Trey Harris. But I would try and pair all these guys with their quarterbacks, obviously. I know they're expensive stacks, but it gets you off. I think the chalk builds will be running backs, spends. So if you start spending a quarterback and receiver, you'll automatically be different. So tournament only for me, but my favorite pairing in this game is Sanders and Wester, and I do like Daniels. I definitely think he's cash viable. Favorite pairing, not playing running backs here, but favorite pairing with Daniels would definitely be Grimm, and he's priced pretty reasonably. So you can get a nice little. He's 6K, Daniels only 6.9K. You can make a team with them, Wester and Sanders, game stack it, and fill out the rest with good value plays.
Yeah, I will call out though, Skinner's ceiling at 4.9 is if you just look at the other guys in the range, insane ceiling. If you just look at the game logs, it's what they've done throughout the year. 26 and 34 in 2 of the games. There's been some dud games, but with missing another receiver, I think that boosts his floor a little bit better. So, and I don't know, Bruce, you'll know this better than me. Who is getting the Travis Hunter matchup on the opposite side? That is worth calling. Is it Grimm? Is it Skinner based on where they line up?
Yeah. So if you look at I think it's going to probably be Skinner more than likely.
Yeah, because Grimm's going to play the slot more, right?
Yeah,
That's the problem. I thought
so.
So.
Yeah. So the other guy that's out, Arnold, he's the other outside receiver. So yeah, it probably put it on Skinner. Yeah.
Okay. Thought so, but I wanted to ask. And again, great game. That's one reason why one of some of those earlier games, I was like, well, there's these 2 games at 3:30 that I love, and I'm not done getting to a couple games that we love. This is not one of them.
No.
Penn State and Minnesota. So to be fair, I know Big T brings this up. Anytime there's a Darius Taylor on the slate, you're not just going to write him off, but there are better running back plays up top. He's definitely way down on the list. I don't love these Penn State running back options. Don't want to mess with them. Tyler Warren, sure, for 7-7. Can he break a slate? Yes. Do I need him? No. Max Brosmer, I know we've considered him as a cheap quarterback in a matchup against Penn State. Yeah, he's at home, but I don't think I'm getting there. Bruce, this feels like a full fade to me. Sure, like I said, if you got some Tyler Warren, would I tell you to blow up your lineups? No. If you had 30% Tyler Warren, would I tell you to fix it? Probably. But what's your overall thoughts here?
Yeah, it's tough for me to play Darius Taylor after I watched him play in the last game. I know they've had a bye week since then, but I think I read where he had like 0 broken tackles in the last 2 games since he got hurt. So always tough to play. And he just didn't look right. So I don't think a week can fix that, but it may. The matchup is already tough anyway. I mean, Penn State's defensive line is already one of the best in the country. So I don't want to chance that at all. Quarterback situation's tough. I don't think I want any of that. Katron Allen at 5,400. Even if Singleton's kind of banged up, I think he's a good tournament option for cheap. Receiver Warren, like you said, he's kind of wide receiver 1 and running back 1 as well. Last few weeks, he's kind of played a little bit of both. And especially when they get down to the goal line, he kind of runs the ball some too. So I think he's a good play, and could smash here if the game stays close. Going to get a lot of action there. Daniel Jackson at 5,600. It's a good tournament play. He's a good player and can break any slate. So I wouldn't rule him out either. But mostly a fade for me. I just think this game is like 14-10 or something crazy, maybe 21-10 Penn State.
Yeah, not a lot of action, like you said. Bryce, do you think this has a lot of action, or is it? I think it's not a bad full fade spot for sure. Yes, there's enticing options, but
cut.
Yeah.
We're doing the Tony cut. We talked about so many guys that we like on this slate. I think it's a great slate. Just cut this fucking game out, and there's so many other good games to attack in tournaments.
I'm with you. All right, cool. So not a lot of action there. Let's get to the game that's going to have a lot of action. This is one reason we want to cut this game, because UCF West Virginia is on the slate. That's a pretty good football game. I know Darius Taylor is not the same price as RJ Harvey, but I want more exposure to RJ Harvey. He's 9.8K. That's an expensive tag, but I do not care. RJ Harvey's a great play. We definitely have to like him in this spot. Garrett Green, you could definitely make a good case for him at 7-8. One of the issues you run into West Virginia is when it comes to the skill position guys, is it White? Is it Donaldson? I don't know. Is it Clement? I mean, that's one of the issues with this West Virginia pass game, where I love the idea of not really taking shots on these receivers, just playing Green and then loading up on like Harvey and then some of these other options. Like maybe you could go to Mr. Dylan Risk at 6K. I don't think he's a bad option this week for a cheapie. And then mix and match some of these cheaper receivers like Jacoby Jones, which, Bruce, that's got to be Jacoby Jones' son, right? Am I right? He doesn't have like a second or third next to his name, but is that his son?
I don't think so. It's the one from Ohio, though. If you ever played Max Slates, he was one for Ohio that scored a lot of points. I don't think it's his son, though.
Okay, he's not that age where he could have a kid, that's all I'm saying. It's definitely been a bit since he's been in the league. So
yeah, RIP.
Yeah. But anyways, overall, Bruce, talk about this game.
Yeah, I think there's some really good plays here. Garrett Green, like you mentioned, looked himself last week. So if I play him this week, he's going to get hurt. That's just the way it goes.
I hate Garrett Green. Stop putting West Virginia on the slate. Every week he absolutely fucks me.
Who'd you say, Bryce?
Garrett Green. Every time I play him, he gets 10. Every time I don't play him, he gets 30 or 40.
Well, you tell us what you're doing, and then we'll do the opposite. There you go.
He's the best cash quarterback, but I want to fade him. There are other good options. So
yeah,
I'll let you guys know tomorrow morning in Discord if I'm going to play him or not. And you guys are welcome to do the opposite.
Right, that's why you have to sign up for Bryce's cores and get the Discord to know if Garrett Green's a lock or a fade. There you go.
I'm not like the fade guy. I'm right more than I am wrong. But Garrett Green, I'm not right on ever.
No, to be fair, there are guys that sometimes just haunt us, and I'm with you. I'm typically not that guy either, but it's funny because the way you spoke about it, everyone watching the show, the 250, all are like, oh man, I hate Alex Bowman. He's that guy, right? They all have that guy that just.
The thing is, I never play Alex Bowman because I know he sucks. The issue is Green doesn't suck. It's just like, I don't know. I never get him right. There are some guys like you always get right at fields, and some guys you never get right. And he's like the one guy I never get right.
Yeah. My one buddy who's a very casual DFS player, I'd always just give him, my FanDuel cash team every week or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he'd be like, man, whenever we play Tyler Boyd, we just win. You know what I mean? When he was on the Bengals and stuff. And like, he'd be like, I'd send him a team with Tyler Boyd. He'd be like, oh, this is going to be a good week and stuff, right? So you got guys that always work out and guys that don't. It just kind of happens. So, but Bruce, do you have any final thoughts on the game or anything you missed? And then we'll get to Bryce to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I think RJ Harvey is one of my favorite running back plays this week. If you remember back to last week, Baylor played this West Virginia defense, and Bryson Washington put up like 50. Speaking of big scores that just screwed you over big time, Bryson Washington smashed this West Virginia defense. So I think RJ Harvey does the same. If you look at it, it's kind of cool symmetry. RJ Harvey is averaging 29 points per game, DK points per game, while the West Virginia defense is giving up 29 points per game to running backs. So that's pretty good symmetry there, and I like him. I think he just smashes tomorrow. He is expensive, but it's going to be tough to play him and Brooks together at those prices. But I think he's probably my favorite tournament running back tomorrow. Jacoby Jones, you mentioned, he's a solid play. I'm going to have some ownership at that price. Just a better receiver in there with risk in a quarterback. The way to attack UCF is through the air. So maybe play a guy like Clement or Cole Taylor, who's going to have some ownership for sure. Justin Robinson's actually looked good the last few weeks. He's 3,500. With Traylon Ray out, he's probably going to play a bigger role too. So, I do kind of like these West Virginia receivers. I'll put those on the playbook and kind of break those down too, since there's so many of them.
All right. And speaking of Bryson Washington, my play got a 50 spot last week, and I think I'm retiring from plays in the day. I mean, that was it. That was the best I can do. I don't think I'll ever have a 50 spot again. Mama Rocks Homestead, favorite show of the week. We love having you, and we love having all you guys hit that like if you could for us and subscribe to the channel. That's the only time I'll mention it. Bryce, let's get to you. You talked about Garrett Green. RJ Harvey, can you get him in your cash games this week? He's 9.8K. It's a hefty tag. There's also a lot of good running back options to get to. Right. But talk about this game.
Question: do you prefer him or Hampton?
Him or Hampton?
Yeah. Harvey or Hampton's.
Harvey for me. I think Bruce will probably say the same. What do you got, Bruce?
Yeah, Harvey.
Yeah, I think you can get one of them. Okay. I don't think you can do both. Just playing through teams. So I think there's three really good running backs.
Bryce, here's another good thing to mention too. Do you like the running backs like a Harvey spend over the receiver ones too, correct?
In cash, yes.
Okay.
I think that Hampton, Harvey, and Brooks are all like super strong cash plays, and I'm definitely getting one of the three. It's possible to do two. Yeah. You're giving up a good amount of receiver, and but I do think there are some cheaper quarterbacks this week that are fine. I like Morton, I like Daniels, Lagway. You can do. I really would rather not get to him. I'll put up all this stuff on the site in the morning and get back to this game. But Green is, in my opinion, the best cash quarterback play of the week. By no means is he a lock. I'm done talking about him. So because I'm just going to jinx it either way. His receivers, not cash plays, but if you're playing him, you can run him naked. But if you do want to pair him, Bruce, I think Bruce broke those down really well for us. Sorry. UCF to me is pretty much Harvey or bust. I don't really want anything to do with their receivers. I think Harvey kind of runs all over them if they're able to score, and I think they are going to be able to score here. Yeah. That's pretty much it for me here.
Yeah, clearly a good game.
It's a very good game. Harvey's going to carry ownership. Green's going to carry ownership, but I think there's still good plays in tournaments. So yeah,
for sure. I think we broke that one down pretty good. Next game up, BYU Arizona State. 48.5 total, one of the lowest totals on the slate. I didn't expect that seeing these teams, but it's not a great game compared to some of these other ones. You do have Cam Skatebo at 9.4. I want RJ Harvey instead. I think Skatebo's great and all, but I don't know. Tyson's definitely going to project well at 6.5. I don't think he's a bad play. And I mean, the BYU side, Retzloff is a little expensive. Lassiter's gone up 2. Chase Roberts 6.1, 6.3. They've had really good price tags. I think for the price and the total, I'm not excited about this game, Bruce. What's kind of your thoughts? I could see him shoot out, but I'm not totally sold on those price tags that I'm seeing.
Yeah, I agree. I think this game is going to be slow. Arizona State wants to run the football. BYU kind of does too. And BYU goes at one of the slowest paces in the country. So, I don't have a ton of interest in it, but there are some individual guys here that are interesting, especially on the receiver side. I think Tyson is still one of the better receiver plays here. Even though he is priced up, guys getting almost 50% target share last 4 weeks, which is nuts. Got 17 targets last week, has 9 touchdowns this year. He's looked really good. It's really hard for me to fade that kind of volume at that price under 7K. Most of the guys that are getting 30% target share last 4 weeks are 7-8K. So I think he's a great play at that price, and will be in most of my tournament lineups for sure. I might go back to Darius Lassiter as well at 6,300. Kansas cornerbacks are just like all Big 12 guys and just shut him down on the outside last week. So Arizona State's cornerbacks aren't that kind of caliber. So I think he can do good things. Chase Roberts as well. He went off in the slot against Kansas last week while Lassiter was getting shut down. So I don't mind him either. Those 3 guys, really tournament worthy plays here in this game. Even though it's a lower total, I think those guys have big upsides.
All right. Bryce, I'm curious what you think of this game. We've talked about a lot of great games. Is this one that's on your radar?
For tournaments, yes. Cash, pass on everyone here. I think Scattaboo would be like the one cash play, but like I would much rather like find the extra money to like spend up on one of these like absolutely like stud backs in great spots. Not saying Scattaboo's not a stud. It's just not as good of a spot as these other guys are in. So.
Yep, we agree there on that one. 2 more games left. Kentucky, Texas. I know Bruce wants to watch the Horns, but I'm not hooking the Horns this weekend. This is not a spot. This seems like a cut game for me. I don't need to get there. Kentucky, they play some good, at least defense and can kind of grind out games and make them a little gross. 46.5 total, Bruce. I'm out on this game. How about you?
Yeah, pretty much. I think Gunnar Helm at 4,100 is a good value, and that's about it. Mostly fading it. Don't love it.
Yeah, Gunnar Helm's definitely a value you could get to, but I'm not dying to. Bryce, let's get to you on this one. What's your thoughts here on this game?
To me, it's kind of Helm or pass in cash. I don't love the game for tournaments either, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't love this game either. Let's get to the last game of the slate, Louisville and Pittsburgh, which it's not like an amazing total. It's 58. There's other better ones, but it's a good one, right? It's in the conversation this week. It's one that we definitely have to consider. Pittsburgh's defense, they definitely can struggle at times. This is definitely a spot where I think you have to like some of these options. We'll start with Brown, I guess, for Louisville. Or is he not even in this week? He's questionable, actually. So he's not someone we're going to be looking at. It'd be Duke Watson at 6K. I forgot. He got hurt last week. That was the whole disaster. Like 60% ownership or whatever. Desmond Reed, 9.5K. Hefty tag on him. Of course, we should talk about the quarterbacks. Bruce, you have it projected as Holstein and Yarnell. I'm assuming Holstein will be possibly playing, so that's why you have that split projection, which at 8-1 he would be intriguing in this matchup. Tyler Shuck, he's definitely going to be a quarterback we could consider. And then, of course, you have the spends of Ja'Cory Brooks at 8-2, which there's other receivers that I think I'd prefer than Brooks. You got Bell as a value, Poppy Williams, tons of options to consider in this game. But again, this game is probably like 4th or 5th on the list. It's not like 1, 2, or 3. That's kind of my thoughts. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of down the list just a little ways. I have both Yarnell and Holstein projected. Just because Holstein is healthy, the coach said, they're still deciding on who's going to start. Yarnell played really well against Clemson last week, I thought. So, he's if he plays, I think he's a solid play against this Louisville defense that struggled last week against Stanford. So I don't think he's a terrible play. Running back, tough to play these Louisville backs when we don't know what it's going to look like between Watson, Brown, Chaney, Maurice Turner's getting healthy. So it's tough to play. Desmond Reed is a tournament play at 9,500. I'd prefer the other guys in that range. Ja'Cory Brooks is 8,200 now. Tough to play him at that price, but he's a good tournament play. Poppy Williams got 15 targets last week, so if Yarnell goes, I think he's a great play at 4,200. All these cheap Louisville receivers: Chris Bell, Hicks, Huggins, Bruce, and Bartholomew for Pitts, cheap as well. So. Yeah, there's just a lot of cheap receivers here. I'll break those down in the playbook as well. There's a lot here that you can get into with Lee out for Pitt as well. So it's kind of a fun game if it shoots out. I don't expect it to, but there's some good individual value here as well.
Yep, a lot there to discuss. Bryce, I assume this is not a game you're going to be loading up on, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is one that's on your radar. What's your thoughts on this game?
I honestly don't really like this game much. Like, we've talked about so many games and plays that we love.
Many games, right? There's so many good games. You don't have to play this one.
I don't think Holstein's a bad play at 8-1. You kind of have to choose between him and Reed. Those are my favorite Pitt options. The receivers are just kind of a mess as to who does well. I think they're all tournament viable. With Lee out, I think it helps. Obviously, Williams and Johnson the most. Probably Kenny Johnson. So, that's something to note. Brooks at 8.2. I'm really not going to get there. Give me Restrepo over him pretty much every day of the week and Sunday. It seems like a game I should like more than I do. So
100%. It does feel like that, and it could get really underowned in tournaments for sure, especially with Holstein's price being where it's at. So don't completely ignore the game. But again, run everything you got. Again, we haven't ran all of our teams and everything like that. We're looking at pricing. We're breaking things down. We're looking at matchups. And once I run the teams, I'm curious if the Sims will push it just because the ownership might just be virtually unowned. And honestly, it might be virtually unowned on the afternoon slate. You might not have to do it on the main slate. You could do it on the afternoon slate, and it could have no ownership for sure, just because everyone's going to load up on those other games. So that's the slate. Bruce, talk about the Friday slate for the people real quick. I could pull up real quick and say what the games are. They are Temple, UTSA, Purdue, Michigan State, UNLV, San Jose State. So, and we got some expensive price tags on quarterbacks. The running backs are dirt cheap. Receivers are expensive. We got a nasty Nick Nash, or I like to call him Rick Nash. So we got Rick Nash and Ricky White. We got guys you can spend on this slate. So talk about the Friday slate.
Yeah, it might even be better than tomorrow's main slate. I think.
No way! Tomorrow's main slate is so good. You think this could be better?
I don't know. It's really good. I love playing UTSA guys. That's one of my favorite teams in DFS. And then I love San Jose State. Walker Eggett, the San Jose quarterback, is really good. And then I can play Childs against Purdue. So I'm happy with that. And he's cheap. If you looked at his price tag, he's $5,500 tonight against Purdue at home. So it's a great slate in my opinion. I think about to start the playbook for that one here in a minute. And it's it's great. Two of the better receivers in college football, and Nash and Ricky White, one of the best young receivers in Nick Marsh as well. So it's loaded. I love it. So it's gonna be a fun slate for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun slate for sure. I've got some teams in there. It'll be a good time. Bryce, what's on schedule for the bachelor party this weekend besides the DK Sportsbook? What good stuff do you guys got going?
We're doing this night golf stuff tonight. And then going out to like this rodeo bar. It sounds pretty cool actually. And then tomorrow morning we're doing DK Sportsbook. Dinner, and then to be determined, we're going to decide as a group our Saturday night plans. Hopefully nothing gets too crazy, and I'm awake in the mornings. Thankfully, Arizona is on Mountain Time instead of West Coast time. I love Mountain Time personally, like for DFS, like just because you're done earlier in the day and whatnot.
Mountain Time's my favorite. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyone that says that Mountain Time isn't the nuts for DFS, like hasn't lived in it.
Yeah, it's true. I'm as someone who
it's not too early for football, but it's nice and early for like basketball and baseball, as to where like you still have the rest of your night. Like living on the East Coast, it's like, I mean, I'm busy from 5 o'clock to 10 or 10:30.
You can grab like a 7 p.m. dinner, right? Like
exactly. Like I'm always bringing my laptop to dinner. My wife is like, "Are you ever not going to bring your laptop?" And I'm like, well, if you want to pay for dinner, I'll take tonight off. You take me on a date. You can take me on a date. Otherwise, I got to work and pay for this shit.
Yeah, I'm with you. Trust me, as someone who is currently on the East Coast and Mrs. Mountain Time, yes, I'm with you on that. So, all right, let's get the plays of the day. Which there's a lot of plays to pick from. This is not going to be an easy decision this week. Bruce, I'll go to you first. Who do you got? Who's your play of the day?
Going with Restrepo. I think he smashes. He's expensive, but definitely going to have him in every GPP lineup I have, most likely, which probably be 2 or 3.
Okay, I currently do not. I don't have mine picked yet. I have one so far, but I want to hear what you got, Bryce. I want to hear your play of the day first. So who do you got? Who's your play of the day?
God, it's honestly a hard week for me to give a play of the day, just because I think it's like way more wide open of the like slate than we've had in a long time, which kind of excites me here. My play of the day here is going to be Roderick Daniels.
All right, Roderick Daniels. It is here's the question. I think is RJ Harvey the highest owned running back on the slate? I don't want to give out the highest. Will he be number one?
No.
You think?
No.
You guys don't think
I
so?
think people are going to play Hampton and Brooks over him. He's going to come in third in ownership. I think it's going to be Brooks, then Hampton, then him. Like he's going to carry ownership, but it's going to be behind those guys, I think.
I'll tell you this, RJ Harvey is he's my favorite. He'll be my play of the day. But if you want a cheapie, right? Because I want to give you a cheap option as well to kind of work with. I like Skinner a lot. I think he's a really intriguing play for sure. But I love RJ Harvey this week. He's someone I definitely want to jam in. So I'll be trying to jam him in this week. Hopefully you will as well. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for us. If you want the playbook from Bruce, go sign up at runpuresports.com. Go check it out. He'll have all of the playbooks for you. He'll have the late night one. I'll be helping out with the tags on that. The night one after. We got everything. So be sure to check all of that out over there. Hit the like button on the way out. Subscribe to the channel. Thanks a lot for joining us here. For me, Mango, Bruce, and Bryce. We'll see you guys later.